All right, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse. It is August 19th, 2026, and I'm your host, Eric Osterman. If you're new here, welcome. Every week, we break down the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and infrastructure trends, then answer your toughest questions live. So before we jump in, quick introduction. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse, where we build open source tools and commercial products to help engineering teams deliver infrastructure the same way everywhere. One of those tools is Atmos. If you haven't checked it out yet and your team uses tools like Kubernetes, Terraform, OpenTofu, etc., highly recommend you check out Atmos. Go to atmos.tools. Quick note on how to get the most out of today's session. Well, our format is informal. You can engage as much as you'd like and ask questions in the chat. If you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. If you're watching the recording, keep in mind these calls happen live. You can join future sessions by registering at cloudposse.com/office hours. One small ask. If you find any portion of today's session valuable, share it with your team. You can find the recording on our YouTube channel where we post it in just a few hours. So with that said, here's what caught my attention this week. Um, First one was Gripe. It was not on my radar as one of the many vulnerability scanners for shift left security. Has anybody been using Gripe versus like Trivy to scan their images? We are going through this exercise right now with Atmos, making sure that we are doing everything in our capability to secure the supply chain. We have a lot of standard things today like
Sorry,
trivia.
I was muted,
Oh, hey,
Eric.
Mohammed.
Yeah, I use it. I think it supports SBOM also.
It supports S-bombs also.
Yeah,
Okay, nice. So yeah, I'll take another look at it. Um, versus, did you have you also been using the Trivy scanner for images as well?
yeah, I did. I use both of them actually. Anything free, I will use.
Just layer it on. Defense in depth, right? So, all right. Well, it looks really clean. I like that. Um, so I thought we talked about this last week that TF-Lint supports OPA, so you can enable the OPA plugin and use the standard OPA policies to validate your Terraform. That's really nice. Also, just a shameless plug, Atmos supports TF-Lint as well as a native hook. So if you want to orchestrate and enforce that these things happen as part of the life cycle of the execution of your Terraform or OpenTofu, using hooks, lifecycle hooks in Atmos to call tools like TF-Lint is a great way of doing that. Thank you, Michael, for sharing that. Um, so Stripe, this is an interesting, I found this interesting because it just goes to show kind of where Stripe is positioning themselves now. And the fact that they are, uh, I don't know that the deal is closed yet, but are acquiring OpenRouter or attempting to acquire OpenRouter as expanding their line of business is interesting. Um, Basically, how company OpenRouter, if you've not been using it, it's a marketplace for LLMs, allows end users to shop around basically without having to sign up for a million providers. You just sign up for OpenRouter, and then you can uh, use access the LLM marketplace to use LLMs with your agent harness and pay like the best rate possible. So I think it's Stripe, they've definitely cornered, I think, the credit card market or transactions market in that sense. This maybe is their attempt to corner the market around um, LLMs, how people procure their LLMs. A lot of these services now exist. I know Vercel has their own open router like marketplace. I don't know if Cloudflare does. but there's a few of them. Just yeah, another PR piece you could say from Wiz, but they uncovered through their they have their own red agent, which is like their own red team, an AI agent that goes autonomously and looks for exploits. They identified one in a public Snowflake repository that exposed the internal Jira system, and they were able to exploit that within a matter of minutes of uncovering it. Um, yeah, it just goes to show that I think these days something like the red agent is going to become a requirement for operating any project, something that is continuously looking for vulnerabilities and exploiting them. What I thought was also interesting was that this was done through the HackerOne vulnerability disclosure program. I've not looked, I mean, obviously I know about HackerOne and how that works. I'd be curious what HackerOne's policy is on like agentic disclosures of vulnerabilities and if those are rewarded just as much as non-agentic disclosures. Not that one can really distinguish. I thought this was interesting. Seen a lot of pieces about this lately. You know, I've probably definitely been guilty of this at some point. But I definitely also try and to curate my responses or be very clear and to the extent to which I've curated it. So if you know, for the longest time in social media, it was pretty common to see TLDR, too long, didn't read, as an abbreviation, and then a quick take or summary of what it of the response. The equivalent of that is now AI DR. AI didn't read because it's just, you know, vibe goes lop that was pasted into a Slack channel. So I think there's two takes. There are multiple takes to this. One of them is something that came up on Hacker News a few weeks ago where someone posted, or Terrence Tao, well, someone posted a conversation that Terrence Tao had with ChatGPT on some mathematical problem. I don't remember which one. But what was interesting about reading, you know, somebody who's clearly a mathematical genius and a deep subject matter expertise is the line of questioning or how they interact with the GPT, which in and of itself is a learning experience. That's a little bit how I think about when I do share conversations like that. That as a subject matter expert within all things, obviously Atmos, all things Terraform, when we answer questions, I like to share the context or my line of thinking around it uh, in the event that that's helpful to the person receiving the support. So it is AI. I did read it. Hopefully, our customers or you know, community users read it as well. But be wary of that. Just pasting, you know, zero effort, being a meat proxy. That was the other post I saw recently. They called it being a meat proxy. You're basically transfer being the proxy in between the GPT and some Slack channel somewhere. Don't be that. Thoughts on this?
Dude, I am forever going to use Meat Proxy moving forward. That is now going to show up on my business card.
You know, meat proxy actually extends to a lot of things as developers these days, right?
Mhm.
We're the meat proxy getting paid for using AI.
Yeah, I
Um,
think this is rampant. I try to avoid it by using the, what was it, the standard technical English
oh yeah,
stuff.
ASD, STE 100 or
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm still the meat proxy, but at least I'm proxying it through something that hopefully can be digested. downstream easier.
Yeah. This has been really helpful for me. I've been using this as a prompt keyword in a lot of my things when and some skills, asking ChatGPT to simplify its responses using this as a guideline. Technically, this is copyrighted and you can't just use it directly.
Yeah, they've actually updated this website in reference to some AI usage.
Oh,
If you
really?
scroll down, yeah, scroll down, keep
Okay.
going. Uh,
Let me see
well,
here.
well,
AI.
maybe it's not there. Maybe it's in the blog or something. But I read that they've acknowledged pretty much that it's being used. I don't remember what tab it was.
Yeah. Well, if you happen to find out, I'd be really curious
Yeah, I will. I'll look.
to, to read up on that a little. All right, so that was that. Hot off the press, Paul, you shared this. The AWS IAM policy autopilot, which I believe is a Python tool and MCP, can now interpret plan files from Terraform to generate a least privileges IAM policy. That sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope you can build that into Atmos or into other tooling. And I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but it's it's possible. It's more of the discipline in using CloudFormation. Most people don't do it, and most pipelines have full privileges to deploy stuff, and it's not by template or by project. But this really moves us in that direction, and it kind of makes it painless. It gives you a starting point.
Yeah, I think it's always been a boring thing to try and create those least privilege service policies or roles. This makes that easier. I yeah, have not tried it out yet. I think it's smart though that just by looking at the plan file, you can reverse engineer that. So that was a clever support. Also, anytime you see AWS acknowledge that Terraform exists is nice, even though they do a lot of Terraform, obviously.
Am I the only person who ends up a lot of times with an apply that fails because of the additional things that, are not covered in the permissions that
That are
make,
not obvious from the plan file.
yeah, I mean, it happens to me like all the time. Am I just not doing it right? I've had to manually go through that process of adding in these permissions to like,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So I haven't been doing this, so can't testify to that.
But everyone does do a plan and an apply role at least, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I mean, well, no. So there's a few different things here. So, well, okay, I see what you're saying. Let me take this back. Um, I mean, if creating a narrow, fine-grained IAM role specifically to apply a specific Terraform root module. Uh, that sounds aspirational at best, long term. I think the better approach here would be something policy driven overall, like what kinds of things you want it to be able to or not to do, but making it, I mean, I I hear myself saying it out loud. That is what an IAM policy is, but it's yeah. If especially if there's going to be other teams managing those policies, that's going to be no fun managing. So a higher order policy language on top of that, I think is probably needed.
Well, I'll go one better and consider that in the CloudFormation world, you can also do it per stack. The
Hmm.
template can generate many stacks, and
Hmm.
you do not necessarily want, if I have my stack, someone else makes theirs, or there are extra copies, they do different things. You do not necessarily want one person's permission to modify theirs to affect your permission. So you could even take this idea to not just that module, but that instance of a module.
Yeah. And then there's this, this ultimately the service that is running as a result of that, possibly, say an ECS task, which has its own IAM role that it needs. And I'll be honest that even though I knew exactly what this was saying, I was thinking about the second use case and not the first use case of like applying the Terraform to begin with. I mean, if your Terraform will create an IAM role, guess what policy you need? Administrator. So it's like there's really nothing that this buys you in the end there unless you have an overarching policy of what you can do once you have that policy. So like a differential differential equations applied to IAM. All right. So yeah, GitHub has been slaughtered this past week, and I mean, was it Monday that I forget if it was when GitHub Actions, the whole ecosystem crashed. That was a separate incident. This is the other incident that happened. This was the one I think on Monday, which was an interesting one. There was a little latent bug inside of VS Code where if this one internal service at GitHub slowed down, it would cause automatic retries to the token service from VS Code. And at the scale GitHub operates, obviously, with millions of active clients, even probably VS Code's IDEs not even attended to at that time, phoning home, this caused a dog pile on their infrastructure, maxing it out. So they were able to identify the root cause, and then they remediated or they mitigated it temporarily by traffic shedding some of the requests to a separate region and 403ing the rest, while they bought time to roll out a fix and address the underlying problem. It's just I I see a lot of the I see more and more of the goodwill evaporating for GitHub on this. And I'm sympathetic to both sides. I want GitHub to be victorious. I've talked about this in the past. I really don't want to have a decentralized how you say, fractured open source ecosystem across 20 different uh, Git social Git platforms and never know where a project is and really have no idea to what degree that platform is actually securing the code, is actually enabling um, supply chain or mitigating supply chain risks and attacks and so forth. So I think the world and the internet needs a GitHub. Doesn't have to be GitHub, but it's pretty hard to start this late in the game as an up and comer and have the experience that a site like GitHub has operating at this scale. So let's hope they figure this out and it stops being the brunt of a lot of jokes. But hey, because we're working so hard with our AI agents and we never get a break anymore, at least when GitHub goes down, there's a bona fide excuse to go outside and get some sunlight. Any more on this? Hey, Michael.
Yeah, just had a question. Wasn't there, and I might be hallucinating myself on this, but wasn't there an AI service that is offering Git hosting? I think
Yeah,
I saw an announcement
yeah,
somewhere.
Cursor. Yeah,
Cursor, that's the
Cursor.
one it was.
They
Okay.
just exited the private beta, and now anyone can sign up for the Cursor um, like Git alternative, GitHub alternative. Bear in mind, this is not a new concept, and there's many of these popping up. I think Cloudflare also has their own alternative now as well. So we're going to see more of that, more and more of that. And I can totally understand it for hosting a enterprise's private source code. Um, where I'm more against it is when we talk about it in context of open source. And I do want a hub of open source. I want one place where all the open source is vetted and discoverable. I don't want 30 hubs Facebook is, succeeded because there's Facebook. It's not because there's 25 different Facebooks. I guess there have been attempts, but all of them have failed. If any of you remember, do you guys remember when SourceForge was the thing? That's where we would all find the open source. Fortunately, that went away.
Yeah, well, actually, it's still there, and I kind of I don't know. I'm not hesitant. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. I guess people would say I'm feeling some kind of way, but there are tools in Homebrew that are legacy applications where the source and or the artifacts are hosted on SourceForge, and they're starting to
Oh,
be deprecated, like they're
uh,
no longer maintained or something like that.
yeah,
And so the crazy thing about it is a couple of them, they're pretty simple, like command line tools. And I just hacked up a solution, of course, using AI that works for me. So now I can remove that dependency and not
yeah.
even have to worry about, SourceForge going away, Homebrew deprecating it, or whatever the case is. I own the code, I can maintain it, I can kind of use it to my needs. If somebody else enjoys it, then sure, MIT license all over that thing, and you can use it as you want to. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that SourceForge is still around for code hosting.
Yeah, let's see. SourceForge. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, gross.
I think I
Makes
just
me
downloaded DLC from there yesterday or something like that.
Is VLC still hosted on SourceForge?
Downloading it. It feels
Uh,
like that's where I downloaded from.
yeah,
Might be wrong.
That looks the same.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like an artifact of a point in time.
it is. It's like they're going for that retro look.
Yeah.
Probably where the CPAN stuff is at, right? And that lived there somewhere. Old
Yeah,
Perl modules. It's like back in the day.
CPAM, right? Or it was Pearl. Yeah, cpan.org. Boy, that was last time I touched that was 2002 or something, and I was in college.
It's hosted on Usenet groups. No, I'm just joking. I don't know.
But that is a perfect segue into something else for nostalgia. Um, let's see here. And if it's next. Yeah, Finger popped up in Hacker News today. Like I forgot about it almost. And it's interesting that it still lives on to some small degree, but it's still distributed in most major operating systems. And I thought it was an interesting analogy that this was the first kind of social network, and it's still technically around. So, for those of you who didn't grow up on Linux back in the day, obviously this existed on all the major Unix flavors as well. Finger was a way where you could look up somebody, on any host name, it would return the .plan file. Not to be confused with Terraform's plan file. It would return the .plan file that a user had in their home directory as a way of kind of announcing what you're working on. Think about it in the academic setting on university campuses or so forth as a way to share kind of what you're working on with your fellow researchers, for example. There's also a very famous hack. I was happy that they talked about it. One of the very first worms, or maybe the first worm that ever existed was this one by Robert Morris, where he found a buffer overflow in the finger daemon and created a virus that self-replicated and took down entire networks. So that was a pretty famous one. Anyways, this is a blast from the past. Apparently, they've come up with a you can now you can bring Finger back and you can claim your username. I believe at some of these services they talk about um, as well. I do kind of like how simple some of these protocols used to be back in the day and how simple slash naive they were. Anybody still have a Finger profile? I also thought it was interesting to learn why it was called Finger. I never knew that. It was because who was it? The developer who wrote it saw, or was it no, it's not John Carmack. It was someone else. Anyways, he saw a bunch of people using their finger on the screen, looking down the who directories on the machines, and that's how it got the name finger as a tool. Anyways, that was that. TF policy, I thought this was interesting because obviously there's Sentinel, but this is now something different from Sentinel built into BSL Terraform that allows you to write in HCL policies that live in these TF policy files alongside the modules in the code itself. So going back to what we were kind of talking about earlier about, you need some higher order policy than just IAM. This is kind of like that. Obviously, this is not load bearing, to quote Claude, in terms of policy enforcement, as much as, I mean, it runs in CI, I guess it could be enforcing something. And yeah, public beta in Terraform not available yet in OpenTofu or anything like that. Did I skip anything else? Postmortem, policies. Yeah. So the next thing is this KYAML. And I've been around the block for a while. And we have a product called Atmos, and I'd never heard of this formatting called as KYAML, and it's kind of interesting to me. So what is KYAML? Well, as you know, YAML is a superset of JSON. So you can first and foremost just drop in any JSON inside of YAML and it'll work. This is a way of formatting it in a way that is leveraging that exploits the that fact and renders it. So it's just a map here with your key value pairs. And that it's a first class thing in Kubernetes. I thought it was interesting. I don't know why it needs a new name other than just calling it YAML. Yeah, YAML with JSON formatting.
Where is that useful?
I think it's just a preference thing that some people
Can people stop having so many preferences?
so many opinions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like now we have JSON L and like all
Yeah,
TOML and there's just so many formats. I mean,
yeah.
the old man yelling at the cloud,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. It's not gonna end here. John, were you gonna say something?
Nope, I was laughing at the old cloud, yelling at the
Yeah.
cloud.
Exactly. So, all right. So, yet another standard. Atmos updates. So we've been heads down on a few things since last week. Knocking out a ton of bug fixes and DX improvements. The release should be going out as we speak right now. So we are 1 week behind or so with 1.226.0, but this is going to be all in 1.226.0 going out today. So Atmos has this concept of configuration profiles, and we also have this ability in Atmos so that if you don't provide a value for a required flag, Atmos will prompt you or ask you what you want. So we, for some reason, hadn't tied that to the profile flag, so we added that now. So if you run Atmos with the profile flag and don't specify what profile you want, it'll let you select from the available configuration profiles that are configured. We have this skill that I can't believe it works so well as it does. It's called field test, and we've been running field test against a lot of commands inside of Atmos, and that's helped us uncover a lot of bugs, such as this one here. The GKE kubeconfig authentication. So yes, we now have native support in Atmos for GKE integrate for Google's Kubernetes engine integration, as well as Azure's Kubernetes service, as well as, of course, AWS's Elastic Container Service, Elastic Kubernetes service. So native authentication in Atmos with that. What does that mean? So if you've ever used AWS, for example, and you authenticate with SSO, that's great, but you still don't have access to the Kubernetes cluster that you might also need access to. So then you need to run another command that exchanges your AWS credentials for Kubernetes authentication, and then writes that to a kubeconfig, exports that somewhere, and you have to remember all that. So when you use Atmos with Atmos Auth, all of that happens automatically. So when you sign in using Atmos Auth, you're automatically authenticated with your cloud provider and any other services like your container registry, like the Kubernetes engine as well, all in one line. We also had a contribution for our scaffolding. So one of the beautiful things in Atmos is you can define a project template and all the files that it needs, and then generate your fixtures from that. So this is an example of generating a number of environments straight from Atmos. One of the things we didn't support was this idea where if you wanted to conditionally create lots of different files based on the user's input, you couldn't do that. So we added the concept of a matrix inside of the scaffolding tool of Atmos. So it can now generate any number of files and evaluate conditions on if that file should be created based on the user's input. It also supports three-way merging, which is really cool. If you've used scaffolding tools like Cookie Cutter in the past, it's great the first time, but it doesn't help you for day two operations. What if the upstream template changes and you want to bring in those changes? You can now do that also with Atmos. So Atmos supports the concept of a three-way merge. So you define your scaffolding configurations once. Those can be in your repo or they can be a separate repository. And then your teams create all of their projects from those scaffolding templates. And then you can update the scaffolding templates, say, with new workflows or new settings. And the team can choose to upgrade their local settings whenever they want. And it'll perform a three-way merge to regenerate the configs locally. We also took a cue from Helm. One of the things I like with Helm is after it installs a chart, it will display the README afterwards, showing how to use it. So what you see here is the README associated with a scaffold that gets output after the scaffolding generates the output. So you can present to the user instructions or messaging on what they should do now that they've generated their repository or their project from a scaffold. All right, any questions on that? And one other enhancement is, so in Atmos, Atmos has the concept of stacks. Stacks have the concept of components. Components are the building blocks. Back in the day, components were only Terraform root modules, right? So maybe a VPC or a database would be a component. Well, Atmos supports lots of types of components. Atmos supports Packer, it supports Ansible, it supports native Helm, and native Kubernetes manifests as components. It also supports containers. One of the things that didn't make it into the first release of our support for containers was the support for networking, so that each service in the stack could have its own Docker, addressable host on the Docker network. Now that's supported by default. Every stack using containers has a Docker network corresponding to that stack. So in a very Docker Compose kind of way, Docker Compose was an inspiration for some of the syntax that we have here. Your stacks can now define containers. Why this is nice is your team can start defining their entire local development environments in Atmos stacks instead of Docker Compose. Why would you do that? Well, Compose is a great tool, and if your team's happy with it, keep using it. But one of the things that I find is teams experience tool fatigue when they have too many different tools, and they have to do things one way with Terraform, one way with Docker Compose, one way in CI, one way to authenticate, one way to do all these different things. What if you could just do it the same way across all those things? And then the team is investing in the same tooling. The team becomes an expert at one tool instead of having to become an expert at so many different tools that each have their own limitations and work differently. So this is a way to define containers that run locally for your local dev in Atmos stacks, should you wish to do that. And that's it. Let's see what any interesting links shared in the chat. I did that thing again where I forget to check. Yes, bring back the Gopher. Michael, did you use Gopher back in the day?
Yeah, I did. And actually, this is circa 92 on VAX-based mainframes. And like I was in school at the time, and we used GopherNet for basically it was hypertext. It was the original hypertext document, way to share documents and everything. But we could pick up content from other universities, documents, what do I want to say, like programs, whatever news, everything all over GopherNet. And what I like about it compared to like modern browsing, Lynx is pretty good. Lynx is a CLI-based browser. And there's another one called eLinks, Elinks, whereas Lynx is Lynx. Um, Gopher is really, really good about using your keyboard to navigate a web page. So you can tab and almost know exactly where you're going to go. Whereas when I try to use my keyboard on modern web pages, I never know where tab is going to take me on the next link. Like there's so many hidden little divs and links and all this other stuff that it's hard to use your keyboard to navigate a modern web page. But Gopher made it dead simple. So that's what I really liked about it.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find a URL for the other one.
Let's see. Oh, here was the post from John. He was going to update us on them acknowledging the use of ASD within AI. Simplified technical English and artificial intelligence is rapidly changing how technical.
It's just a white paper, Eric.
Yeah.
I did, but it told me that they at least are aware of everybody's rush to it.
Yeah. I hope, I think, to remain relevant, I think they should just open it up and allow it.
Well, you actually scared me in one of the last videos because I'm using it, and I don't know to what degree, and I'm using it while working with other clients, and I don't know the blurriness of legalities, but
Yeah.
it made me go look when you said that.
And did you also see when we talked about bail as a
No.
linter? You can use it to enforce. Basically, you could use ASDST 100 as a North Star for what you want to develop, and then implement Veil as a linter to enforce that in all your markdown, for example, in a repo.
I'll look at that. Thank you.
That's pretty cool. All right. Let's see what else. Links. Does Link still work these days, though, with all the modern sites that are basically JavaScript front ends?
Yeah,
It
I haven't
does.
used it in a while, so I couldn't
It
give
does.
you
It
100% on
does?
that.
I use it for newspaper sites. I'm in the Bay Area, so I look at the San Francisco Chronicle, which has degenerated to entertainment news. And so it's very heavy, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of K of garbage on every page load, and probably megabytes. It takes a minute to load any page, and you can make it work with links. And I like that exercise because it shows you how much junk is being downloaded. It does cookies, it does JavaScript. It's really sophisticated that it's
It
surprising
does
that it still
JavaScript
works.
too?
Yeah, it'll download it all.
Interesting. I'll give it another shot. Huh. Yeah, Lynx is the oldest continuously maintained text web-based browser. Created in 92. All right. Any other interesting things or events that came up? Oh, Zach, you were asking about cursors owned by Grok now. I'm so confused on where that transaction ended. I think so, but it wasn't clear to me if it's been signed off and everything, and checks in hand. Anyone know for sure?
Well, I was under the impression that Cursor was picked up by SpaceX.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Grok is the model. I didn't know if there was a business behind it, but
Yeah,
maybe SpaceX owns the model now, or it's like a Twitter thing, or wherever Grok lives, it lives. But Cursor was brought on to SpaceX. There's another pretty well-known developer advocate that I follow. First name is Matt. I'm drawing a blank on his last name at the moment. But he's been posting a lot about how he's going over from Cursor to SpaceX. So looking forward to what he produces there.
yeah.
I hope they don't get like gutted like Windsurf did. Oh, I forgot who acquired them, but they got totally like torn apart. That
Well,
Windsurf,
Windsurf is what became Codex, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Any other interesting things this past week caught your attention?
Does anyone ever use pipe CD instead of like Argo CD?
No, let's see. What's Pipe
I
CD?
ran across it the other day and I'm considering turning my home lab into using it instead just to screw around with it. But it includes the ability to Terraform and non-Kubernetes resources instead of just Kubernetes resources. So it's just kind of interesting
Hmm.
for a GitOps based product. Crickets means no one's used it, so never mind then. You can ignore the question.
Well, I mean, there are quite a few of the
Yeah.
CD platforms over the years. Our personal focus has been so heavy on GitHub Actions, we don't really look at some of the self-hosted alternatives, but
But you
that
you
does look
you
interesting.
you're into the push model, not the GitOps model for deployments then?
Well, both, but I mean, even if we are using Argo CD, we're still using GitHub Actions to commit and push to a deployment repository somewhere.
Gotcha. Yeah, this would be independent of that. This is just what would reside on the cluster to run the operations after things get
Oh, okay.
done
Yeah.
repo side. So
Okay. Got it. Got it. So just purely CD. There was another tool. Let me see if I can find it quickly that caught my attention. Thought it sounded pretty cool. Um, Okay, yeah. CTL. Have you heard of this? I thought it was interesting because it is a little bit like Atmos, but what it also has is a Kubernetes controller, um, and allows you to interact with the cluster and let the and lean on the cluster to do the continuous reconciliation loops, for example. But this CTL to drive it on the command line.
It looks like it's gaining popularity. So
Yeah, it's a young project, only 877 stars, but yeah. All right. Any other interesting projects, Zach, you've come across lately?
yeah, I've come to realize I can't watch what projects are coming out anymore because it's just too much.
Yeah, it's a
So
fire hose.
yeah, that was like my doom scrolling would be looking through new releases of stuff, and I really like doing that. And next thing I know, I'm like, dude, I can't use any of this stuff because I'm too busy looking through the deluge of all this AI related crap that it's like, yeah, they're all good ideas and point things, but man, I don't know. So
Yeah. A big difference between just putting something up and it's actually a bona fide project with legs that will have staying power and be around for a
right,
while.
exactly,
Traction, it needs to be like another dimension. Stars used to be like a poor, very poor proxy of that. Now it's even worse. Which is the other thing that's interesting. Now I learned you cannot retrieve information about who liked the project anymore unless you are the project maintainer. Thought I posted that. I had posted in the Office Hours channel, but it was right after Office Hours last week. Let's see if I find it here.
Yeah, what I've found is so I also, Zach, I also right before I go to bed, right when you're not supposed to, I'll click on the GitHub app and I'll click on the trending, and that's my doom scrolling. But what I found is these ones that are popping up, the race to acquire stars. Some of them I've seen that they'll have a post on that little graph that GitHub is um hindering the
Yeah,
stars
which is
being
what I
shown.
had. This is now what they're doing is they're restricting access to the API endpoint that was used to
Oh,
create the star graphs.
mm,
Yeah.
huh.
which makes sense, right? Try
Yeah.
to
I mean, I
try
think
to
honestly it's for
deter
the better.
something. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I did like to see that previously, but
right.
is it at the trade-off of spam? No. And
No.
yeah,
Mm.
so yeah. All right. Any last
If no one has anything, I was going to take the opportunity to ask Michael about his use of open knowledge, and we don't have to solution it here. I joined the Slack channel, but I had some general questions like, so I was looking at that and a CLI tool that implements the OKF and then the solution from LangChain. If he's still there, Michael, you still there?
Michael Jenkins or
Yes, sir.
okay.
Oh, what? Yeah, I thought you might have been talking about the other Michael. If you're referring to something that I posted, let me
No,
know
I
what
thought,
it is.
were you not the one that was using the open knowledge or advocating for it?
I think it was Jeremy White
Oh,
that
it was
had
Jeremy.
the
I'm sorry.
yeah. Jeremy's not
Oh,
here on the
okay.
call today, I think. So, but yeah, he's been using that and then Backlog, which was that other tool. Um, uh, I forget who. Someone here on Office Hours promoted it. I forget who. Yeah.
I do have one more thing. I don't know if it's interesting or not. I'm trying to not do the AI slop, but in my quest to have memory across, well, actually, let me show you this. So I unfortunately have to use multiple harnesses to save tokens from whatever my business can give me.
Yeah.
But So there's all kinds of memories out there, like the super memory and whatnot. But I was looking for something that was SQLite based, and so the are you guys familiar with? I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Orbra superpowers from
Yeah,
Jesse. Well, he
yeah.
has something called episodic memory. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
And that is working fabulous uh, for Claude specifically in his repositories. Yeah, scroll up and or just search for Orbra episodic memory.
All right.
So this is a nice little SQLite based one, and it's been working pretty good. It's just grabbed your sessions, um, but this is not cross-platform. So um, he's pretty active on Threads, which is nice. But I was looking for something like this that was cross-harness agnostic, and I found something like the one that I was, yeah, that one that Zach posted. I just posted that one as well. It's in the chat. So I've actually been working on um, some hooks and stuff on top of that. I don't even know how to pronounce that. How do you pronounce that, Zach?
I was gonna stay quiet until you did.
There you go. Uh, but so it has some deep hooks in for its use with uh, Hermes. So I'm trying to port over some of those into use with Claude, OpenCode, and Kiro. But I was wondering if anybody had tried any of these memory mechanisms, or even have the issue that I have where it's cross harness.
I have the issue,
Cool.
and I'm looking for solutions as well. So I'm all ears. I'm
Yeah.
considering pulling all my chat conversations out of the various providers and
Right.
aggregating them into my own RAG and doing all sorts of crazy stuff that feels like it should be not needed, but whatever.
Well, let me know if you hear anything. That because this was I have poured over all of these and spent many tokens comparing all of them, and I really like this the one that I posted because of its SQLite background. It seems to be the lightest weight versus like something like
Yeah.
I forgot what the other one was. That was pretty popular.
Mem
Hindsight.
Hindsight. I've
Mm.
tried Mempelis a
Yeah.
little bit as well. It's pretty decent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can agree with you. Something that's very simple and lightweight just to get up. Uh, John, did you see the other tool that was sent that Jeremy was using, but also announced
Oh,
on office hours called Backlog?
backlog. Let me look.
I thought it was a pretty very simple SQLite back way of coordinating all the tasks that your agents are working on across
Mm-hmm.
harnesses. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and it's just a simple CLI tool, and it comes with a web UI as well. And you just run it locally.
Oh, wow. A little Tui. Nice.
Yeah.
This is exactly because I have the cloud subscription from my company, but then we also have a bunch of tokens in Kiro, which we've been using. But on
Mm,
days when Claude craps out or we've used our tokens, I have to do like a session handoff from Claude to Kiro. So
yeah.
this would work if I could agnostically manage the tasks and pass them off to the next harness.
Yeah, I mean, which is interesting. Maybe what you need, yeah. One way of solving that is memory. The other way of
Right.
solving it is having the tasks, which
Yep.
themselves have context and have,
Yeah.
comments, and maybe that's even better. So I don't know. Haven't been using it myself, but Jeremy White liked it.
Cool.
Michael, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, for John and the other folks that are using memory products, how do you interface with your agent harness to tell it to use the memory? I mean, I understand you can do like the MCP connections and everything, but I'm just talking about during your session, do you have to actively say you have access to this tool, save memory here, or does it know through the configuration to save points of memory to the memory store?
Yeah, that's the rub. Mike. So for instance, like the episodic memory from Jesse's Orbra superpowers, he implements hooks and then um like a post session. Uh, what's the term to use? So it uses hooks.
Okay.
That's what it does. And then there's some long running task that will, store it to long term memory, which is pretty cool. So, and that's actually what I'm trying to do with the other memory that I posted that's could be used cross harness. It's just implement hooks because the quick fix was to write it inside of the agent MD or the Claude MD, but as we all know,
Yeah,
it's not
that's not a fail safe.
guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have a real crappy AI repo going up for this integration. So if you don't judge me too harshly, I'll post it and you guys can
Yeah,
look at what
you
I
can
do.
always share what you're up to.
Yeah, this is a no judgment zone because we've all
Well,
broken countless production
mm,
stuff. So
yeah,
But we fix what we break. That's what makes us different.
that's right.
exactly. That's where the learning really sticks.
Yeah, agents view is actually what uh Jesse, who's the Orbit dude, suggested on Threads.
Oh, really?
Eric, have you messed with this?
Looks really cool.
So yeah, I was looking at using it just because I'm sick of dealing with multiple harnesses and
Yeah.
projects and personal and work. I just want to get
Jeez.
all the sessions into my own like SQL light instance
Yeah.
and create, reprocess it all myself. I'll do the ontology and have it pull out the triples and plug in all that crap once I get my own setup done. But it's useful.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out too. Well, thanks everyone for your time today. That brings us to the end of the hour. We'll be back next week for more office hours. Let's see here. We'll post the links that we discussed today. You'll find those in the office hours channel. So join our Slack team if you haven't done that already. I'll share the links where you can get that in a minute here. If you are new to Cloud Posse or you use some of our open source, just so you know, Cloud Posse does provide commercial support on everything that we publish on our GitHub. Go to cloudposse.com/support to learn more. We publish office hours as a podcast. You can subscribe to however you listen to podcasts. So you can find Cloud Posse's DevOps office hours on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, etc. So the Slack community where you can find the links from today's call, go to cloudposse.com/Slack. You register, enter your email, and you'll be invited to our team. If you join us in the office hours channel, that's where you'll find all the links from today. We also do have a monthly newsletter you can subscribe to. Go to cloudposse.com/newsletter, as well as you can subscribe to our weekly office hours. It's a 1 hour session, open to anyone. Just register at cloudposse.com/office hours. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Great conversation today. I appreciated it. I love it when I walk away with some new tools to check out. Take care.